Hello, everybody. Well, I just got through pretty much wrapping up the project for the little 9.9 Johnson long shaft outboard. And one of the things that you find when working on uh, engines is they become what's called mystery motors. The uh, the reason I had a little bit of trouble with this one is because the um, tag on it was painted over, and I cleaned it off as best I could, and I got a partial part number. And uh, anyway, the had a little problem getting parts because uh, I was told it was 1 year, and then got to digging into it, and it actually ended up being another, and the partial part number helped me get the right parts for it. But anyway, the got it running and in late shape. Have a few more things to do to it. The just kind of want to read off the checklist of what all we did to it. I provided the work at no charge for my labor, and the customer is providing the parts and materials. And after they decided to go all the way through it, I guesstimated about $170 in parts. And the what I did is I removed and replaced the spark plugs, and I cleaned them. There was NGK BR7HS spark plugs in it, and they were showing the correct heat range. Had a nice little chocolate brown on them. So I just cleaned them up and put them back in. Most of the time with outboard motors, that's all that's required. If your RPM drops a little bit, usually it's because of wrong heat range of plug. But when you get them in the right heat range, I've run them 10 years and not had any problem with them. My philosophy: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Did a compression test on it with my compression tester. Both cylinders checked at 120 psi. People ask me all the time, how much compression should a motor have or engine have? And on mine, it'll run pretty much with 75 psi on the gauge, 80. But the main thing you're looking for is a balance. So if you have one cylinder that's 120, another one that's at 80, then you got some cylinder problems, scoring or other stuff. But they all read the same. I have checked some of these outboards, especially the older ones. Some of the older ones had on my gauge, check at 180 psi, and they run like a scalded ass 8. But anyway, I'm looking for just make sure they're balanced. I always seafoam all my cylinders before I even start working on it, just to make sure that help clean everything out and have lubrication in the cylinders. As I told you, I removed and replaced the water pump. I put a complete kit all the way through it. That checked out okay. I pressure tested the lower unit, and the fluid that was in it was in good shape, so there's no water or contaminants in it. Looked real good, and you want to always kind of pull the lower plug out. It should have a magnet on it if there's any metal on it. A little bit of metal is okay, but if it's got a lot of metal fragments, then you need to look out. I went ahead and removed and replaced the fuel pump. I put a new one in it. The new one checked at 3.5 psi, and that's about where I like to see fuel pumps at. Cleaned all the fuel lines. The fuel lines were in good shape. They were good fuel lines, and you can always kind of tell when they get really soft and kinky. You got to replace them, but they were original, good factory fuel lines, so we're going to run those. One of the things I do is my float test. I have an optimal float test, and it's 3 degrees when it lets off its pressure, and that's where I found those engines will lean out really good on the floats. So to really explain that to you, how I do it, is completely different, but it works. And I've had guys, I've showed it to, and they go, "Wow, okay." I don't understand why it works, but it does work on nearly every two-stroke outboard, whether you're working on a Yamaha Suzuki, naturally aspirated engines, not fuel injected, um, but I've even learned to do it on the fuel injection pumps and does the same thing. The I secured the water pump telltale with 2 wire ties. The little clips on them break off, and I usually keep a bunch of those in my toolbox because they do break off on OMC, but I didn't have any, but I did secure them with wire ties, and they look good. Now, when I was rebuilding that top carburetor, that plastic has fractures in it. And the one on this one was a 334050. That's 334050. I went ahead and ordered a new one. I was able to find one out of Illinois for about $20, plus shipping. And but I used Marine JB Weld on the broken corner that was on this one, and I retapped it for a quick fix. But I don't guarantee it. Even though it looks good and is working good for now, when they get wormy like that, it's really necessary to replace those. But you got to do what you got to do. And I am capable of taking the piece and writing a CNC program and actually making one out of other materials. I could even make it out of aluminum if I wanted to, but I'm going to go ahead and run with that one. New piece will be in $20, but that piece lists for like $100. So they will lucky to find one out of Illinois for $20. I power tune engines that I work on to get all the carbon out of them, and I chemically do it. And I use power tune chemical, and it cleans the carbon out. There's quite a bit that came out of that motor, and you can always tell when that black carbon comes out. It's really there. I do ignition tests, high and low, and off the ignition, both of those were optimal. Good spark, good hot blue sparks, what you're looking for when you do your test out. And I adjusted the low end to the jet to lean, and then I backed it off a quarter turn, and I set it up at the 9 o'clock position. So you can really lean it down or richen it up quite a bit on the low end jet with that unit. I clean the block under the cowling, and then I seam foam the entire engine. And I do that because it'll show any bad parts that are in there not sealed up. It does help remove the moisture, but when you wash that out and you fire it up and you don't have any problems, and then you see foam and don't have any problems, pretty much shows you all your electronics are in good shape. And then it also displaces the water moisture in the future that's underneath the cowling. The generator voltage test showing 13.7, and that's optimal for glass matted batteries, AGM batteries. That's okay. The B plus wire connection was loose on the voltage regulator, and it's actually a diode, surround diode, and so I cleaned that up. I can do a hood test, and the hood test is where you box everything up, you act like you're a customer, everything's cold, and you start it from cold, and fires right up. I isolated the kill switch wires. The kill switch was bad, and so I'm asking if he just wants a push button on it. I prefer to put the lanyard kill switch on them, upgrade them to that lanyard kill switch. That way you can hook it up to you if it ends up on another John boat or something like that, and something would happen. You have that kill switch on your life jacket. Kills the motor, and you don't get hit by the prop. I do like kill switches. I use them all the time on my own boat. So things can happen very quickly, and a kill switch is a good thing to have. Then I did the ignition dropout test on cylinders 1 and 2, and the dropout test was perfect. Now, these mystery motors, the other people have been working on it, and it had a spring pinion part. I noticed that the pull rope starter was kind of wormy, and this little pinion spring part is a part number 0389204, and it was missing it, so got to order one of those. And the carburetor top cover, and then the kill switch. But anyway, the engine's really basically ready to go, and I can put those parts on at any time. So that's pretty much all to it. Like I said, this gentleman is a commander at one of the American Legion posts, and it's a privilege and an honor to serve those that serve. And I'm always happy to answer any questions anybody has on outboard engines. Just appreciate the opportunity to serve you. So anyway, hope y'all are having a great day, because we are.